With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
We made this.
Hello, longtime subscribers, first-time listeners. As you may know, we occasionally divert from our regular episode coverage to discuss other forms of media or to deep dive into a topic. My name is Mike Slamer, and this is We Are Starfleet, a Star Trek podcast. And today is one such podcast where we are going to discuss the new book release from Vernon Press, Star Trek Essays Exploring the Final Frontier, co-edited by Dr. Amy H. Sturgis, who we have with us today, and Emily Strand of Mount Carmel College. This collection of scholarly works looks at Star Trek from a critical viewpoint, examining philosophies, considers the cultural impacts on fandoms, nostalgia, and the value of science fiction in all forms of media. The author, Una McCormick, writes the foreword for this book titled Why Star Trek? And I think that the essays that follow strive to answer that question through unique perspectives that are both intensely researched and engaging for every reader. Star Trek Essays Exploring the Final Frontier is available for request via libraries as either hardcover or ebook and available for purchase at mainstream book retailers. So please make sure that you check the show notes description of this podcast episode for a direct link with a discount code. So, let's jump into this interview. I have with us here co-host of We Are Starfleet, Ashley Thomas, returning to the virtual studio. Ashley is a longtime media journalist. Her work as the nerdy blogger online brings together TV, film, comics, you name it. Ashley has talked about it. Ashley, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here. And our guest today is the aforementioned Dr. Amy H. Sturgis, PhD from Vanderbilt University, author and professor on intellectual history, speculative fiction, and the Gothic. Dr. Sturgis, welcome. You were a guest previously on our show, and I'm so delighted that you're able to make it back with us here today to discuss your latest work.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest again. I'm really looking forward to getting to visit with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So at this point, Ashley, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I'm excited to check in on this interview.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Dr. Amy. I'm so happy to have you today. So, how did the concept for this book get started? Let's just jump right in.
All right. And thank you, Ashley. I'm really excited to talk to you. It's been a thrilling adventure, to be honest. So, my brilliant colleague and friend, Emily Strand, gave an amazing paper at the Southwest Popular and American Culture Conference a few years ago in a panel that was devoted to Star Trek and Star Wars. How amazing was this paper, you ask? She was immediately approached after the panel by an acquisitions editor at Vernon Press, which is very well-established international publisher of academic works, fully peer-reviewed works, very reputable. And this acquisitions editor asked her if she would like to edit a book for the Vernon Press Series in cinema and culture. And Emily said, yes. And so that's how this whole thing started. She kindly and generously invited me to partner with her as co-editor, knowing I'd published on both Star Trek and Star Wars and taught graduate courses on both franchises. So she asked me if I wanted to be a part of the adventure, and that was the biggest no-brainer ever. So I said yes. And then we created a call for papers and put out a call and received so many high quality responses from scholars all around the world that we realized we didn't have a book that had a section on Star Trek and a section on Star Wars. We had a book on Star Trek and a book on Star Wars. So fortunately, Vernon Press, Captain Archer style, had faith at the heart and was willing to roll with that. And so that's how both books were born. They're kind of siblings. And so the second book in the set, Star Wars Essays Exploring a Galaxy Far, Far Away, will be out later this year. But both of us were involved with the co-editing all the way through, but it also made sense to have some division of labor. And so I took the lead on the Star Trek volume, and Emily took the lead on the Star Wars volume. And that's sort of how all of this evolved.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
So as you mentioned, there's a really broad collection of essays in this book. What would you say is the connective through line for these essays?
You're right. There's a lot of variety there. And we really let our contributors be our guides. We chose what we thought were the best or most fascinating, as it were, proposals. And so our through line is that we hope we give our readers a sense of what it means to explore 57 years of Star Trek storytelling. So transmedia storytelling at that. Not only examining television and film, but also all of the storytelling that connects through comics and fiction, and even the textured layering of the universe that comes out of both official creators and fan creators kind of co-creating Star Trek as the years have progressed, and really its earliest iterations. And to get us there, then, the book is divided into 3 sections: exploring the series and films, exploring the ideas, and exploring the multimedia storytelling. And also, I should note, I went into this not only as a fan and as an academic, but as a teacher. And I'm certainly one of many. There are classes all over the world that use Star Trek, in the classroom with students. And if I want to excite students about thinking about Star Trek in critical ways, I don't necessarily want an anthology of essays that just focuses on, say, the Next Generation. or that just focuses on philosophy and Star Trek. I want an anthology that says, hey, here are questions a philosopher is asking of Star Trek, but here's a linguist, and here's a historian, and here's a political scientist, and here's someone who studies philology, and here's someone who's thinking about literary theory or queer theory, or a linguist, right? Or here's someone who's thinking about the original series, here's someone thinking about Discovery, or a character, or the patterns that have emerged over these 5+ decades. So I was also thinking about something I'd like in the classroom. But the short version, now that I've given you the long version, is that, we know this isn't the first anthology on Star Trek, and it won't be the last. But what we're excited about is how these essays do two things. Number one, they help together, when you put the whole package, as one book, they help identify and contribute to some of the current important discussions about Star Trek, kind of providing a map of where the study of Star Trek is and moving that forward. But also, second, they spotlight some underrepresented topics that deserve more critical attention. And in that sense, kind of, we hope, issue an invitation for people to shine the light on some places that perhaps haven't gotten the spotlight yet.
That's awesome. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
So in the foreword of the book, Una McCormack says, in response to the question, why Star Trek? She says, because few shows have given me so much uncomplicated pleasure while asking me to think more carefully about the world I inhabit and the kind of world I would like to inhabit. So my question to you then is, what is your why Star Trek?
That's such a fantastic answer. There's a reason I've asked her to come and speak in my Star Trek class. She's so great. I think originally, because I can't remember a time when Star Trek wasn't in my life, when I was very young, what I connected to was the notion of heroes. And even though I couldn't have articulated that emotionally, intellectually, I understood I was being given stories of people who were trying to be the best selves they could be, and then also partnering with people who were very different from them, because difference is strength, and together trying to make something better. And so I saw this future with heroes in it that valued curiosity and rationality and empathy and tolerance and imagination. And that really sort of set the course for much of my worldview, I think. It sort of helped make me who I was. But if I had to answer that today as a grown-up, also more than 50 years in my journey, like Star Trek, I think it's an invitation to hope in a time when I often need that invitation, because I look around and I am dissatisfied by many of the things I see in the world. But Star Trek doesn't let me off that easily, because the flip side of the invitation to hope is the challenge to act. Star Trek is saying you can't be passive in your hope that things are going to be better. Sturgis, you can't sit there and just wish it to be a better. You got to roll up your sleeves and get out there and make that future you want to see happen. So I'd say an invitation to hope and a challenge to act is really what I come back to when I think about what that serves in my life right now.
Good answer. My answer is similar, but it is not quite so eloquent. It is be a better human.
Well, that says it all. That just puts your finger right on it. I love it.
Yeah. So you've got an essay in the book as well. Not in addition to doing a fine job of editing, you've got a bit of your own work in here too. And it's focusing on Star Trek Enterprise, which, in my humble opinion, gets a bit of an unfair rap.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could expound a bit on the essay you contributed to the book called Beyond the Wilds and Waves, Reevaluating Archer, the Armory, and Enterprise.
Thank you so much for that question. I've been carrying that essay around in my head for years, and it was so exciting to finally have the opportunity to put that to paper. So like you, I totally agree. Enterprise is due much more critical and fan attention. So my essay is a bit of an invitation. Come on in, the water's fine. Check this out. So here's my argument in a nutshell, if I can manage that. There's already this scholarly understanding that Star Trek was based on what Stephen Rabbich calls a transatlantic double consciousness. Or to put it another way, Gene Roddenberry described Star Trek as both, number one, wagon train to the stars. So that's the US component of the frontier and exploration, and also Horatio Hornblower in space. So that's this British maritime idea of naval duty and service and honor. And so, as someone who does intellectual history, the history of ideas, I'm saying that this US and UK double model of Star Trek appears very clearly in Enterprise. Enterprise inherits this as part of what it means to be Star Trek, especially in the characters of Captain Jonathan Archer and Armory Officer Lieutenant Malcolm Reed. So we think we know what's coming, right? Because this is Star Trek. This is familiar. This is something we've seen repeated in other Star Treks. But instead, Enterprise does something really interesting, especially given the setting, given the realities of world events post 9/11, which happened just as Enterprise was coming out. So you've got Archer, the son of Starfleet, and by implication in the show, the son of the US space program. He's the leader of the wagon train. He's the US part. And Malcolm Reed, the dutiful son of the British Royal Navy, is set up to be Horatio Hornblower. But I argue, Enterprise ultimately challenges what you're expecting out of that transatlantic double consciousness through really thoughtful character development and plot development. And I can do some deep dives in there. And so I'm saying that Enterprise, I think, ultimately surprises us and paves the way for increasingly complex and self-critical Star Trek stories that ask us to look really closely at the tales and the myths that we tell ourselves and what we do with them and how that motivates us and how we understand then how we're navigating the world. So in short, I think you can't get modern Star Trek without what Enterprise brings to the table. So that's my long-winded way of saying, check the series out. It's actually doing something really worthwhile that's worth paying attention to, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, and it's short. 4 seasons. That's a smaller commitment than Next Gen or
That's right.
Voyager, or yeah, you can get through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the essays that kind of caught my eye for various and sundry reasons that I'll get into in a few moments, in the book, frankly, I feel like this essay is very timely as well. It's by I hope I don't say this person's name incorrectly, Brunella Tedesco Barloco.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Her essay, Galloping Around the Cosmos is a Game for the Young: The Nostalgic Drives and Generational Anxieties of Star Trek 2009 and Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens. As someone who's done scholarship on nostalgia driven genre works,
Right.
specifically Stranger Things, which wearing a Stranger Things t shirt today, go me.
Fantastic.
And so,
Good.
and, and someone who came to Star Trek fandom through Star Trek 2009. Obviously, I think digging into the kinds of ideas around nostalgia and remake, reboot, requel are pretty important. Why would you say it's important to unpack the nostalgia in our fandom? Because, I mean, watching the most recent season of Picard was basically watching Star Trek Next Generation season 8. Um, so, and it was very much about the callback and let's reuse all the musical cues from First Contact and Star Trek the Motion Picture. and while I had fun with it, it still was very, very nostalgia obsessed. So I
Mhm.
feel like this essay is very timely in how we look at what is acceptable nostalgia, what is giving us anxiety, that sort of thing. So, um,
Right.
yeah.
No, I think you've just put your finger on it right there. The fact that this is important and timely because there is a lot of discourse and a lot of really strong reaction out there, and it can get very passionate. I want something familiar. No, no, I want something new and innovative. No, wait, not that way, right? Or look at this really clever allusion to lore that's packed with meaning and automatically imports all these feelings and all these meanings with it. Or wait, is that just cheap fan service? Right. So there's all this discourse, and I think what your reaction there really captures that. How are we supposed to feel about this? Is this a thumbnail way to get us to relate quickly to feelings we already have and connections we've already made? Or is this just taking the easy way out in storytelling? So I think you're right. I think Brunella's essay really hits on a kind of zeitgeist moment here where fandom and popular culture and even critics are having these kinds of conversations. So she's asking, what does it mean to be a Star Trek film? What are the spaces available within a Star Trek work for variation and difference? And where is that repetition really important and necessary to make it something that's Star Trek? So I agree. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for how she sort of takes a step back and puts this issue of nostalgia into the larger context of film studies and some of the work you've done too, and you've already pointed this out, our critical understanding of what prequels are and reboots and requels and revivals and how and why they work, when they work, and when they don't work, and what the goal is for these pieces, why we see them and why we see them so often. And, I'm biased. I think it's a great essay. Of course I do. But I think it's especially important, as she points out, to look at this in a multi-generational franchise with a multi-generational audience. And its members, and you just pointed out your own experience here, that means the members have different points of entry into Star Trek when it's a multi-generational story with multi-generational works. People come into it at different points, and that influences their understanding, that influences what callbacks bring back or don't bring back responses that storytellers want to cue in on. And I think she's also sort of spotlighting that the past of Star Trek and the past of audience members' connections to Star Trek play ever-present roles in whatever new story is told. And so we've got to think critically about the decisions that different Star Trek storytellers now are making in telling those stories with all the weight of this inheritance and memory, connecting to it. And the 2009 film is just a really perfect example of that. And I think it's also interesting to think about Star Trek and Star Wars having parallel journeys that way, and sometimes making similar choices and sometimes deviating from those choices and giving us sort of foil examples to bounce off of each other. But thank you. I agree. I think it's a really timely essay. And also shout out to your work and shout out to Stranger Things.
Oh, thank you.
I was gonna stay mostly quiet, but I wanted to jump in here. Yes.
Please.
We're watching the Star Trek Voyager episode Flashback, which is the episode where Tuvok has these memory engrams buried in his psyche, and we actually get to go back in time to his first assignment on the USS Excelsior. So we get to see Captain Sulu. we get to see Lieutenant Rand, and it's this callback to the original series film, The Undiscovered Country. Now, what I found really interesting is that my wife, totally independently, we watched season 3 of Picard together, and she said, okay, that show was its thing. It was season 8 of Star Trek The Next Generation, 25 some odd years later. It was a nonstop, kind of like an IV drip of a little bit of nostalgia, some fan service, iconography, symbology, all the starships, and here and there. But Star Trek Voyager, when they brought in the classic characters, when they brought in Commander Riker for a cameo moment, you had these big aha, oh my god, the universe is connected moment. And it seems that modern media wants to look back consistently and say, that's where we came from. Let's keep talking about where we came from. What are your thoughts on modern media seeming to kind of almost parody itself when it comes to bringing in a lot of those legacy characters, legacy series, or franchises?
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Oh, that's a great question. I think part of my answer would be in there in your question, the sense that it can become sort of self-parody. I bet you're expecting someone here. Can you guess who it is? Because you know it's coming, right? We're gonna hit you in the feels right now. I think there's really useful times though when that continuity helps be the connective tissue that shows you there's cause and effect across these stories. And an example that comes to mind is the way Discovery has given shout outs to Archer, to Captain Archer in Enterprise. And you get the sense that in the far future, they will remember as they're trying to articulate what the Federation means. They'll remember where it came from. And we are, that's a very relevant thing. What does our country mean? What are our shared values? If we imagine ourselves in the future and we say, what do we stand for? Where do we go back and say, at this point, here's an articulation of some loved thing we held in common. And that's useful to see Star Trek do that and say, here's something we stand by that is continuity across the board. But the downfall or the pitfall there is the tendency to just want the eye-watering, get you in the heart moment that sacrifices more thoughtful storytelling for the hallmark moment that can be trotted out just for, or like you said, the IV drip of flashback stuff. It's really difficult, and sometimes I think they hit it just right, and sometimes I think it's overdone because it's easy, and because it may go back also to the beginning of this whole discussion. They know the reaction online will be instantaneous, and there will be people who are going to be very unhappy if they don't see something, or unhappy if they do see something, and trying to weigh what those immediate reactions will be, critical and fan responses. How do you find that middle road there that's going to satisfy the most number of people? I don't know.
Thank you.
And if I may, that particular episode, as well as DS9's Troubles and Tribulations, if I remember correctly, were connected with the 30th anniversary of Star Trek. And so we were intentionally doing original series callbacks in honor of that anniversary.
That's I never knew that. That's really cool.
I only learned that somewhat recently on an episode of Mission Log. So, yeah. little bit of education going on there.
Excellent. Dropping some facts.
Dropping some facts right there. So, next question, Amy. How did the concept of IDIC, infinite diversity in infinite combinations, play into the selection of essays for this book?
I love this question so much. Thank you. We really did want a diversity of contributors. And I will give a shout out. We were super thrilled to have 2 New York Times bestselling Star Trek authors in that list, with John Jackson Miller contributing a remarkable essay and Una McCormick contributing the foreword. But we wanted different representation, a variety of representations there in that table of contents. So we have a truly international lineup. We have different genders and backgrounds and disciplines represented. Some contributors use a microscope and some use a wide-angle lens to try to bring Star Trek into focus. And that's a balance we wanted to have. The let's look at one character or one film versus let's talk about the very premise of Star Trek itself, or what patterns have emerged over 57 years. So we wanted that there. And I think just as importantly, we were trying to speak to or create this volume to speak to the diversity of readers that we really hoped we would have. We wanted to be sure there was no jargon or academic speak, for which a lot of scholarship is rightly infamous. Nothing that would cloud the meaning of these analyses, so that only 3 people in some obscure subfield could actually read it and understand what's, decode the words there. We wanted all of the challenge to come from the ideas and not from the terminology. And we wanted everyone interested in thinking about Star Trek, new fans, veteran fans, students, and professional academics, to be invited into these provocative discussions and invited to look at Star Trek from different angles and different points of view. So diversity was a watchword for us, and we hope that comes across in the works here. But again, thinking about the readers as well as the contributors.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, and I love that you all kept that in mind as you were preparing essays for the book. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What do you hope readers of this text will take away from it?
That's a big question. I'm going to try to give you a short answer to that because
we got vast acres of time.
What I really hope comes through clearly here is, first of all, that everyone involved with this volume takes Star Trek seriously. We think there's something important here, and we want to talk about it, right? We take it seriously. And I hope that this volume and a lot of its sibling volumes out there show that Star Trek is an ongoing, vigorous, exciting conversation about issues that matter. We've already said timely a couple of times here that this isn't just entertainment. This isn't a franchise that invites you to passively accept whatever it feeds you. This is an invitation to think about things and to act on things. And we hope that the book invites more people to ponder the questions that Star Trek asks all of us who watch it and listen to it and read it, whatever form of Star Trek you consume. And also not just think about it, but join the conversation. Because as several of the essays point out, Star Trek has always been co-created by fans. Star Trek survived and Star Trek thrived because fans not only didn't let it die, but also contributed to it. The languages that were developed for Star Trek were in part created by fans, right? The fan fiction writers and the fan artists. So joining a conversation about what Star Trek means, that's an invitation that's been open since the beginning of Star Trek, and it's something we hope to continue with this book. The people will feel invited to say, oh, I agree with that, and that makes me think of this, or I don't agree with this, and this is why, or they're right, somebody ought to look at this more, and I'm going to be the one to do it, right? Or just discuss these ideas and appreciate the breadth and depth of all parts of the Star Trek universe. So this is critical, and it's analytical, and it's scholarly, but it's also, among all those things, a love letter, I think, to Star Trek.
Yeah, just some of the thoughts rolling through my mind as you're answering um, that question. I'm thinking about all of the different ways that Star Trek fandom has kind of quietly influenced how all of fandom works now.
Yes.
If you enjoy going to conventions today, thank a Star Trek fan, because those weren't really a thing until Star Trek did it first. If you enjoy tossing about the term Mary Sue, thank a Star Trek fan, because that is from a Star Trek fanfic that was written in parody, which I think is hilarious. Um, there are just so many things that we just now take for granted within assorted fandoms. Pick your fandom. Um, that were really kind of pioneered by Star Trek, and I don't think it gets its proper due because of that. Not to mention its influence on science, um, technology, the space program in particular. So many astronauts say, "Hey, I want to go to space because I saw, I watched Star Trek growing up." Um, I think is in particular of the first African American man in space, Guy Bluford, um, Dr. Mae Jemison, who went full circle of seeing Star Trek as a kid, wanting to join the space program, was brought in under Nichelle Nichols' recruitment program, became the first African American woman in space, and then went back and guest starred on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So this wonderful, like, full circle thing there. So it amazes me how it's had this almost quiet influence in ways people don't even imagine. So this is why I think art is important, and good art should make you want to do better and be better. And for me, that's what I take away from Star Trek. I love how you phrased it, Amy, of asking questions about um, our reality, and the invitation it offers to how can I make that subtle difference? How can I work towards change, work towards progress? And that is the message of hope I take away from Star Trek. So I think that's really beautifully put. Very wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for what you said, the way you described that, beautifully put, and impacts we don't even appreciate on a regular basis of the way Star Trek changed the way we interact with stories and the way we apply them. It's great.
It's also challenging too. I think the original series, a lot of folks today in culture like to call back to that and say, hey, that was the original. It was all about the Western way. It was all about the American way, truth, justice. And in the first essay, A Conservative World really kind of made me think about that even more so. I've always kind of thought like, oh, it's a very liberal series, it's very progressive even for its time, but going back, these are very classic conservative libertarian values. And discussing the philosophy of the episode with the Platonians, they reject all these things that make them who they are, and yet they have the one line that was written here. Platonians have rejected the things that, in Star Trek's worldview, make life worth living, and their apparent happiness is merely the thin surface of an abyss of spiritual death. And that line in this one essay, I was like this. I was like, okay, take a break. My preconceptions of everything I thought about what I knew about Star Trek.
It's a really challenging essay in terms of thinking about what we think about the original series. I agree with that. There's also a line in there. This is Daniel Unruh, by the way, his essay that talks about the comfort that these characters have and pitting that against the inherent discomfort that is represented by Starfleet. If you're comfortable, you're not out there. If you're comfortable, you're not trying to change things. If you're comfortable, you're not exploring. You're staying at home and kicking your feet up and, taking that invitation Apollo gives the crew. And I'll take care of you. Just sit back and worship me. And this discomfort with the way things are, that set off a lot of not alarms, light bulbs in my head. I see there this idea that the over reliance on traditions of the past is sort of a foil to the urge of the audience to look for a different future. The way those are sort of contrasted in that essay, it's fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. So, Amy, what is next for you?
Well, immediately it's getting this sister volume, this sibling volume out of Star Wars essays exploring a galaxy far, far away. We're excited about that. And we're excited about how the two speak to each other. There's some continuity there. The last two essays in the Star Trek book are a look at constructed languages by a philologist, Dr. Andrew Higgins, and then a look at the way that canon is understood and then re-engineered and re-understood in its relationship between comics and fiction and television and film in Star Trek. There are companion essays in that next volume that look at the constructed languages of Star Wars and that relationship between canon and fiction and comics and such. That last one is by John Jackson Miller, who's written for both Star Trek and Star Wars universes. So I'm going to get that one out. I'm trying to keep my horizons very close right now. Can't think of anything else past that. But I've got a couple of other things. I've got an essay on dark academia and the Gothic that was related to the last graduate course I taught, which was a class on dark academia. And that's going to be coming out before the end of the year. And I'm thinking about what project comes next. So Star Trek will never be far away. That's the only certainty I have. That's a common refrain in my life. So something will be related to Star Trek in some way.
Amy, do you have any speculations for the upcoming seasons of Strange New Worlds or Discovery?
Oh, goodness. I don't, because I want them to surprise me. I am excited about new characters in Strange New Worlds, and I'm right now reading John Jackson Miller's new novel that is the first official novel of Strange New Worlds, High Country. And so it's getting me in the mood. I'm ready for whatever they bring. I'm expecting to have, my heart ripped out and placed in a blender by Discovery. I don't want to say goodbye, but I also appreciate that each season has been a gift, and this last season I think is probably my favorite. So whatever I'm anticipating from Discovery they're going to give me something that exceeds my expectations. I expect. So I'm ready to just be an emotional wreck.
Me
but
too.
Also really enjoy being destroyed by this show I love. So we'll be there for each other.
There we go. Very good. Very good.
How about you? Do you have particular thoughts on those?
The only thing I want out of Strange New Worlds is hashtag Mortegas. I love Erica. I think she's a great character, and so I'm looking forward to her finally getting like her episode, which I think we got a clip of at Star Trek Day. Looking forward to that. As you said with Disco, I am prepared to have my heart broken into a million pieces because Disco is my favorite modern Trek. So, and it's those characters. I love that set of characters so much. I think, and you know, I know someone who worked in set design for Disco, and she talked about how wonderfully kind like everybody in the cast was, and so like this is not only just a great like cast of characters, but this is a set of wonderful humans, and I hope they don't stay too far away from the Star Trek universe.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and I think that comes through also in the show. Their chemistry with each other, but also their commitment to what they're doing. They are all in on that show, and I think that really does translate on screen.
I am all in on Discovery. I can't wait to see where they're going to take it this season. And I really hope we get a strong and rich, rewarding finale for them as well. Because honestly, these characters deserve to have like, you know, their own all good things episode. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Strange New World season 2 is, of course, I think going to be probably one of my favorite seasons of Star Trek, based on the trailers. I'm most excited about the return of Spock and T'Pring and examining their relationship a little bit more, because I think they were such a fun dynamic duo.
Oh, I agree.
I know how a door works.
Yes.
Very cool. Very
before
cool.
we head out, Amy, any last words? Anything that you want to touch on or talk about in regards to this book, where we can find it, or any type of shout outs that you'd like to give?
I would love to give a shout out to the amazing artist we work with, Emily Austin, who created original paintings for both the Star Trek and Star Wars volumes. They are different from each other, but they are both in her amazing style. And so visibly, these two books are connected through her artwork. But she also talked to us about what these franchises mean. And to me, Star Trek is about looking outward and looking forward. And the art she did, that spacescape for the book, meant a lot to me. And so I'm so grateful she took us up on the invitation to contribute her artwork and be the face of our books there. And otherwise, I just hope that there's something here that interests readers. And again, libraries are a great way to access the academic works. They're available in e-format and hardback, and Vernon Press has good connections with libraries, so that's a great way to access. I hope it will be accessible to everyone. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to come back and once again talk with you. So thank you so much. And I hope people will find me online. I'm amyhsturgis.com, and I have links to my socials and other things there. And I look forward to listening to more of your episodes as new seasons come upon us.
Thank you, Amy. Again, I want to definitely recommend the book. I have had the good fortune of being educated by some of the people who wrote chapters for the book, not just Amy, but Dr. Andrew Higgins, who wrote the Invented Languages essay for this tome, was my invented languages professor in grad school at Signum University. So he's brilliant. So definitely worth checking out. Una McCormack and John Jackson Miller have guested in Amy's courses. I had her for my Star Trek and my Star Wars classes in grad school. And Una McCormack was guest speaker one day in our Star Trek class. And John Jackson Miller spoke in our Star Wars class, and it was wonderful. Brilliant, lots of brilliant folks contributing to this volume, and I can't wait to see the Star Wars book too. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sturgis. Appreciate you. Remember, folks, please check the show notes description on your podcasting app for direct links to purchase the book and to check out more work from Dr. Amy H. Sturgis. Thank you all for following us here on We Are Starfleet on the We Made This network of podcasts. Please follow us wherever you listen to good pods. Give us a like, a subscribe, maybe even a 5-star review if you're so inclined. We are very excited for Strange New World Season 2 coming in a few short weeks. We'll be returning with our regular roundtable of Trekkie hosts, including Ashley Thomas, to cover episodes as they air. This is Mike Slamer signing off.
Do you like music? And do you like podcasts? Chances are you like music podcasts. Take this one for example, Pick a Disc. I'm Matt Latham, and every fortnight a guest comes on to Pick a Disc to talk about an album for any reason that they want to. We'll talk about the album as a whole, we talk about the songs, we'll talk about any personal stories about the album, and if they've ever seen the band live, and all sorts of other crazy tangents. And if at any point any of that made you want to listen to Pick a Disc, then you can find us on your podcast apps of choice or on the Facebooks and Twitters and Instagram under Pick a Disc. We're also on the We Made This Podcast Network on WeMadeThisNetwork.com and on Twitter at We_made this. Goodbye.